Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Norty and Rob's Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy Award-winning television producer Chris Cangilla. This episode recapping week 2 of May 2024. Chris, new show, same old show. There is a lot going on. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it this week. My God, we have such a monumental thing to get to with terms of service round 2, but you take this week's show, which there wasn't even a guest, and there's hilarity. They're reformatting the show, and around all the hilarity, and even during this, around the big fight, there's all this hilarity, and even in the middle of it, it's like I think I could just send this to anyone and be like, "This is the best show ever." My God, drama, comedy, it was amazing.
Like any family, there seems to be some tension in the ranks as well as just jokes, and they're having a good time, but there's this underlying tension that we'll get into that I feel, and I think a lot of the listeners feel as well.
Yes, you can definitely cut it with a knife. And you know what? Here, let's just get into it.
Sure.
So we're gonna call this Mulaney terms of service. This one, I think that's fair.
Very good.
So it starts with Sam getting annoyed and a Sam ribbing away because Travis didn't have the John Mulaney clips ready after a caller called and mentioned the show. Kind of just probably to call and ask guys' opinion of it. It's a new Netflix show for, I think it's a series now starting with the whole just some comedy festival, right? With Netflix.
Yeah.
So
He's doing
there's
some live
that.
shows out there.
What's that?
I was just saying he's doing some live shows out there, and so
he's guests and
so the caller called in, right, like you said, and was talking about it and wanted to know their take on it. Now, first of all, let's just take a step back and say, how is it incredible? I mean, it is extremely incredible to me that when a caller calls in that they're able to find some things and then share with the guys. This is just one of those situations where it's delayed. So continue, please.
Yeah, no, it was delayed, and I this is a part of the whole thing is just, and we'll get to Travis's duties more, but it's like I think you can have those. You can have talking points ready, and then when a caller calls in, I think it's a good point to be like, okay, let's bring that up. We have that ready. Anyways, so Travis, Travis's thoughts were, hey, no one's talking about this show. I think I just get at social media here and there. I think it was pretty. I think they talk about John Mulaney a lot on the show as it is. It's pretty famous. I think I definitely saw some ads and some clips for the shows. So I don't agree with him there. And then Travis got SE, as we say, he does, and was passive aggressive, and he started playing one of the entire episodes, and Sam's like, okay, all right, and then Sam asked Jim if he's in the right, and it was interesting because of the terms of service, and no one touched on terms of service more than you and I, Chris,
right? Yeah,
and we thought we were dragging out too long, but it was huge, and we even asked Jim about it when Jim and Nikki were on our show, and then Jim was hesitant to comment because of that, I think. And then he goes, I can't even comment. It's so obvious he's wrong.
Yeah.
And then Jim's kind of just stayed out of it. So we'll stop there and break all that down. I think it could have been ready. I think Travis is wrong for making such a big deal out of it and not just going with it. And obviously Sam is ribbing him, but also Sam's like, you could have it ready. So we'll get more into some of Travis's frustration, but I think that it was probably all avoidable.
Yeah, let me put in my little 2 cents on here. I think Sam sometimes is two-faced, where he really wants it to be ready in a producer role because he had that role, and as a host demanding that role. But on the other side, the other face is him just like, I'm just going to keep on needling Travis because it's fun for me, So he has this two-faced kind of thing. Jim, when he was on our show, talked about how there's no one more important to him other than Sam, of course, being on the show. He wasn't going to do the show in essence, without Travis being part of it and producing on it. So he respects Travis a great deal, and I think it was just his way of kind of like, I'm not getting drugged into this thing again. This is Sam and Travis's thing. So I think that's kind of where he was.
I think you're right. I loved how Jim handled it, honestly. Like, you know what? I don't say too much. Me and Travis got into it before. I do think he's wrong. Jim handled it so beautifully. And you're 100% right about Sam. Like, you don't, first of all, everyone's fine. This is some of the best radio of the year, maybe at least a few years. Jim and Sam anywhere, and it doesn't happen without Sam being Sam and needling. So I think you're
Exactly.
100% right there. All right, let's move along. And with this argument, Travis kind of let on that, look, I'm frustrated, and I think it happens. And I really appreciate Travis's transparency here. I mean, we learned a
Yes.
lot. He has a
Yeah.
lot on his plate. You can kind of sense that there was comments here and there, especially with the terms of service. He's not officially and this is, I mean, it's in his Twitter profile. He's a senior producer, so you kind of could have surmised this, but he just, let us know again. He's not officially the executive producer. He does everything an executive producer does, and beyond. It
For
sounds like.
sure. Yes.
And you know a lot about this from production.
Right.
And him and Troy are both, their title is senior producers. And I mean, Troy should obviously be a senior producer, been at
Sure.
Sirius for a long time, also does a lot. And so we also find out in this that I'm sorry, Travis has the kind of duty of booking the show, which we know and which they talk about. And when you're doing everything else, it's very hard. It's very hard to. This is kind of what I do with publicity for my job.
Right.
It's hard to stay on people and schedule and get guests and do and pitch and take pitches. So it's hard to book as it is. That's an entire job for radio shows and TV shows, as you know.
For sure.
And it helps when the place you work for says, "Hey, this person's coming. Do you want him? Hey, this person's coming in. Do you want him?" And we found out that they only do that
Through
about every
Nicole.
8 to 10 weeks.
Right. Nicole came in. We'll talk
Yes,
about that a
you're
little
right.
later.
Yeah,
And
it
she
was
was the
Nicole.
one that said, "Hey, did you guys have I can't remember her name, but the famous daughter that's now singing a
Kate
lot.
Hudson. Kate
Kate
Hudson.
Hudson. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have Kate Hudson in?" And they're like, "No, we
Right.
didn't. No.
Right.
They didn't offer her to you?" No. And they really talked about, no, they don't really offer us much. We don't get too many guests. I mean, it's sad. And they even went back to where they talked about, yeah, we do our own self-promotion, we do our own videotaping, we get mentioned in a lot of things, and yet we don't get any guests. So I think there's a lot of frustration on a lot of fronts there. But let's get back into the Travis situation.
Yeah.
He and Troy are senior producers, rightfully so, but it seems like Travis has the majority of the work on his plate, and he should be the executive producer. So there's no really determination on that. And, they didn't really get into the pay structure as much, but he seems to be the one that should have that title because he does, in my opinion, in what I'm seeing just as a listener, I think he does the most work.
He does.
And
And yeah,
and
sorry.
he's the best at it. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I think that Troy even mentioned that Troy's not going to argue. Travis does
No,
the most, and I think from a production standpoint, he has that leadership quality for someone who really kind of holds the show together. I've written about it in my Forbes articles, gotten quotes from kind of everybody about it. So I think that's certainly true, and also from Travis, we found out that he's working on the show a lot at home. He's not an elder statesman, but he's a guy who's worked for a long time. His daughter's getting older. He's got a
yeah,
wife. Like at this point, you should be able to delegate that to somebody else, the kind of the
he should
stuff
be.
that is beyond the show, I think.
Right.
So yeah, and I just think what really came out is we've known about Sirius not doing video, which is they get so much press anytime they get a
For
halfway big
sure.
guest. That's so stupid that Sirius doesn't get them video, and now they don't. We know how little they toss them guests. So there is frustration from everyone on the show for how SiriusXM
Let me
treats.
have one more little bit here,
Please,
which I thought was
please.
really interesting. Libby, a frequent caller,
Yeah, yeah.
called in and said, "You guys, let me tell you about this. I think this," right in the middle of this argument, they took her call. And she nailed it. She explained what each person's role is. And it seems like this and it seems like that. And
Right, right,
and
right.
then Troy got a little hurt about that because she kind of said, and then Troy, is just doing the phones like, "Hey, I'm sending emails, I'm getting things." It seems like Travis has more during the show suggestions. It seems like Travis will kind of not pitch things, but bring things up that they're going to go into, where Troy is, left for comment. Now, we'll get to it in a second, but I think there's this huge Mike Montone effect, and I really want to dive into that when it's appropriate about where he fits in this whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. Let's get into that a little bit. And I think you're gonna have more to say than I do, and I want to hear because I.
If you want to do it now, let's do it
No,
now.
let's
So,
do. I got a little more on
you got
Troy.
something else? Okay,
A
go
little
ahead.
more on Troy and T Dog. And then why don't you hit on? We'll hit on the roles.
Sure.
I just think yeah, that was it's interesting to hear because that we hear Troy's frustration with answering the phones. I mean,
Right.
he goes nuts. And when I called in, I think a couple months ago, when the comedian Craig Schumacher was in. and he was happy to hear me, but he answered the phone frustrated. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, hey, what's up, dude?" We knew it was me, but you can hear his frustration. You hear him answering in the background. That's a job in itself,
Yes.
and it's frustrating. So I think it's great to hear that he's pitching content to the guys and, hey, check out these stories, watch these videos in the email. I think it definitely helps with show prep too. And then he also even says, yeah, and Travis is doing more than I am. So
And Troy wants to follow the host's instructions, right?
yeah,
Initially he would just they want the information quick in one sentence, surmise what this person wants to talk about. And then they gave him the task of then qualify these person, see if what they really want to talk about is something we want to go to. So then he said, okay, I'll do that. And then he did that. And then they yelled at him at that. So he's like, guys, I can't win
yes,
here,
no, that's a great point.
and
Yeah.
Sam, to his credit, said, we asked you to do something and now we're, getting on you for doing it the way we wanted it. So, we'll figure out the best way to approach
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And the last thing I have with Troy there is that's a great point. It was as soon as Troy, helper Troy, actually tried to help Travis and said, "Hey, yeah, he does a ton, and I try to help him out too by sending these emails." And then everyone turns their
Yeah,
attention to Troy and just starts hammering about like you gotta get more information from the callers. They're right. They're right. It will help a
right.
conversation if he asks, oh, what about that show? And I'm sure he does sometimes. Just so many of these frustrating calls. So that was hilarious. When
So,
in this whole argument, everyone just turned to Troy and started hammering him. It was amazing.
yeah.
It was
And
amazing.
before we move on to the Mike Montone effect that I'm
Yeah.
talking about, I really thought it was unique because there was a different kind of sense when Travis and Jim were having their terms of service discussion and how they're
Yes.
kind of and how Sam and Travis were having discussion because there's this underlying friendship. It's more of being in the trenches together that they've
Yeah.
developed this thing. So they both knew that there was a big side of kidding to it as well and ribbing that I think it was easier for Travis to move on from it and for Sam to move on from it than it was for Jim and Travis to move on from their discussion.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this whole thing is you're right that Sam and Travis in the trenches and Opie and Anthony and like we
Hmm.
think that a couple of these arguments sound a little toxic. They're not, and they're
They're
definitely
not.
not compared to Opie and Anthony. So they have that friendship and working together back then
And
and
then Troy was one of the first people to tell us when we had him on the show that, this Opie and Anthony was, a very treacherous, very horrible place to be at times for the staff. They were not
yeah.
treated as well as they thought they should be.
Yeah, and I just think this one, even though it seemed maybe as big as terms of service, or maybe it's more Sam and Travis's terms of service, we really like got the sense, I want to know if you did that. Oh, these guys are all really tight, good friends. This is very frustrating. Sirius should have spelled out these roles. They should have made Travis an
Sure.
executive producer. So I kind of blame this all on Sirius. And Travis is like, look, I'm just very frustrated. And he's like, I know you're just giving me crap to give me crap, Sam. And
Right.
so I think
Rightfully,
this one, I don't think there's as much tension with the guys. It's more XM.
no, rightfully so with blaming Sirius. You have to define these points because think about Travis. If he is a peer, so to speak, to Troy with the same type of title, it's hard to delegate to your peer. Hey, man, can you help us out? Other than that. But
Yeah.
if you're an executive producer and, someone's under you, it's like, hey, this is what I need you to do this week for us. Okay. You can still be nice and still be friends, but you can assign tasks better as a manager. So I think it's up to Sirius to kind of rectify that, but who knows what's going to happen? I know we're going to get into what does it look like for the next 6 or 8 months before the contract's up. But
Yeah.
let's get to what I was talking about a
Well,
little earlier.
real quick, I want to
Yeah, for
give
sure.
Travis credit just for one thing. I want to hear your take on Montone. He has even though his whole thing, you hear how frustrated he is. He has an unwavering sense of humor
For
because he
sure.
was joking before, during, and after this argument. So he's like still making jokes during this argument, but he's very frustrated. I love that he never loses his sense of humor. Um, and I think it was he said, "What would McClure say?" And I don't remember if I think Jim did leave and come back in, say something and come back in. And
Yes,
yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, Sam, I know what you're doing," but Travis was joking the entire time and then going back to his frustration. So credit to him there.
exactly.
And please let me know what you think of Montone because he does factor into this for sure.
Yes, he does. And we both really like Mike's contributions in the past and where he fits in and in his role and his vocabulary. But I think Montone might be kind of on the pay no mind list a little bit. And I'll tell you why I feel this way. and I don't know anything, of course. It's just
Yeah,
speculation.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either with Montone.
So yeah, Mike just seems to kind of be out of the whole thing. They don't seem to go to him that often. He doesn't seem involved with doing a lot of production pieces. He's just pretty much a board op that's in the room at times, and that's odd to me because he was involved a little bit more. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but Wings night, they went to Wings. We didn't see Montone there, and we'll talk about that. When they also did a little bit of name changes and going through all that and assigning people names and sound effects. Well, Mike got a name, but no sound effect, and they never went to him during that mock, morning zoo stuff. He's kind of on the pay no mind list. And so to me, and we're going to get into this too, is when they kind of switched some roles, it seemed like they were going to put him in a role to see if he could do it, almost setting him up to fail. Like, hey, try this out. Let's see how you do on this thing. This is a responsibility you should have by this point. Let's see how you do other than being a board op. Because a board op, as far as I know, is more of an entry level type position. And there used to be board ops all over the country for terrestrial radios on when Opie and Anthony were on terrestrial, there'd be a board op in Chicago that would make sure that they come back and with music, that kind of stuff that is before the actual show takes the air. So I don't know. I just feel like he's kind of not on his way out. I don't think they'd force him out, but I don't know how much of a core member he is. And if you think about it too, and I'm sorry to ramble on this, but if you think about it, he is an outsider anyway with these guys. These guys have known each other for more than 10 years, right?
Yeah, and
And
you've seen other interns come in and be
yeah,
producers for a little
yeah,
bit. So yeah, no, I mean, a fantastic point, and it is unfortunate because I think you're right. I don't agree with setting him up to fail for the roles. We'll talk about that in a second, but
yeah,
he's just I mean, we're number one Montone fans. We talked about his production pieces, vocabulary. His vocabulary
right.
is a great point. Just got the show really, and I think this was in one of my Forbes articles. Really blew Travis away at the job interview, and
Right.
great
And
stuff
and
with
please,
Duke and on his dad too, and yeah.
I'm just going from what it appears,
And I
right?
think you're right. Yeah, I think you're
But
right.
and if that appears that way, and if I'm wrong on my take, I apologize. But if it appears that way to the listeners, then there's something there. There's something there because if that appearance and we hear that, it just seems a little bit like that. So I'd be interested if anybody else feels that. Comment here, on our page or hit us up on on X or Instagram. Let us know if you feel that same kind of things that I'm thinking about. But yeah, I'm a fan of him. I think he's incredibly smart and
Yes,
his vocabulary. But I do think Jim's gonna ribbon him a lot. If he doesn't come up with something like, "Hey, check those coordinates," back to his
he has.
military thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think Mike just has a great comedic mind. You've seen that, and like, yeah, I don't know if he's not stop pitching the production pieces, or they just stopped asking for him, or they're not getting them on. But Sam is when Sam is uncomfortable. We've learned this recently with the hug, and maybe some other
right, for
things. So
sure,
when
for
Sam's
sure.
uncomfortable with something, even if it's what the fans want, and it's amazing radio, it could be amazing radio. It just kind of doesn't happen. I think we
Right.
saw that with Uncle Dave. And I think Sam was kind of letting Mike know, all right, we get it.
It's
And Mike
enough.
Mike started
Yeah.
doing it on like Instagram.
Yeah.
So I think that probably rubbed Sam the wrong way. Mike maybe didn't get the hint. And yeah, and then we hear a lot of, his voice, they kind of mimic his voice, which is funny when they do that, but then we're just hearing a lot less Montone. And you're very, very correct in bringing this to the table. I think it's right. So let's
So
talk
let's
about
get in.
the
Yeah, the
roles.
roles changing exactly. So they
Yeah.
decided, like, okay, let's see how it goes. So, Travis did the point of I can do everybody's job here because I've done everybody's job here, which is another thing to go, hey, this guy is an executive producer. He's done phone screening, he's done the board op, and he's done what he's doing as, the senior producer. So I'll do board up and we'll have Mike do the producing part and finding those clips and kind of being the Google search one. We know Troy did that for one time and didn't have a good time of doing that. So yeah, so Mike was in that role. Now it was interesting because they didn't announce. Okay, they said they're going to do it, but they didn't announce that they were going to do it. And there's a time where Jim was asking. I think they had a comedian that was doing impressions, right? And they wanted to hear what those
Yeah.
impressions sound like.
Matt Freed. I think his name's
Matt
spelled
Frieden,
Fred, but
yeah,
they're saying Freed. Yeah.
yeah, and so it was Jim kept on going. Okay, so let's take a look at those impressions.
Yes.
How about a video of those impressions?
Yeah.
He's doing those kind of thing. And Mike was the one that was trying to do it. That's what I meant by kind of setting him up to fail. It's like, hey, man, let's go. Let's go. And
Yeah.
almost making a point of like, you're not doing your job, man. You're not doing it like Travis does it. And you heard Travis on the board go, I got it here. He'd type it up and he'd
Right.
have it and he'd
Right.
go
Right.
do his producer role. So I don't know. What do you think
No,
about the
I
role
I
change?
think you might be onto something, especially with that pulling up that clip of Matt Freen. I think it's how you say his name, but he's a hilarious impressionist. Kind of came out of nowhere from TikTok. But yeah, it's not in assigning him that role. I just think it was natural because they were tossing roles around. I don't think they set him up to fail there.
Yeah,
I don't think it's set him up to fail. Period. What I think happened was instead of when we've seen in the past, whether it's Troy or Travis mess up something or take a while to get something, it's usually turned into comedy and it's funny and fun for the
yeah,
show. And there was like frustration, I thought, from Sam and Jim about
yeah.
all right, yeah, where's it? So yeah, like I guess where's that coming from? So
Maybe, and
it's fair.
we don't know. I just speculating. I'm going from my experience. If I had somebody that I really wanted to do well and needed to do more for the whole overall production and was in there, once they're in that thing, you're like, come on, man, you should be able to do this by now. Let's go. You got to have these skill sets. And I felt that's kind of how Jim was like, where is it? Come
Yeah, but I mean, even if you know that stuff, you get stale. That's not your normal job.
That's true. He's not up to speed. He's doing his normal gig and setting up the studio and running the board. Yeah, it's just I know
It
we've
was very
kind of
interesting.
yeah. It was
Yeah.
just the dichotomy of the whole political and relationship thing behind the scenes is interesting to me. So we'll see.
So stuff to keep an eye on for next week. We'll see if people are back in their normal roles.
Yes,
I mean, sticking with everyone's roles here, I also think Travis's frustration is look like they didn't help me with making me an EP. Me and Troy have the same title. We don't do the same job.
that's
Is
the
the
exact point.
contract you're also getting to Travis? And we know it's got to be getting to Sam and Jim in some fashion, whether they're preparing for what could be ahead or not. Like, is it getting to everyone? Because like we're talking about Mike, he doesn't know probably what's going to happen. Troy, I mean, Troy and Travis, I think could bounce around to other XM shows, but I don't even know if that's for sure. Like, is it getting to everybody? You think this
And do
contract?
they want to do that? I mean, this show is
Right.
the creme of the creme. Anyway, so yeah, I feel that you're exactly correct in that assumption that this contract year and things are happening, that there's an uneasiness with the staff of what's up next. If this continues, fantastic. If it doesn't, where do I go? What's my career path? And when you're like that, you're scared. And when you're scared, you don't perform at your best. Confidence breeds success. And if you're not really confident in what's going on and where you're going to be, maybe you're a little nervous and maybe tension's a little high.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's a big part of it. But
But we
we
heard some weird, interesting thing at this point, though, that I know you know about. Jim said, maybe I will
yeah,
resign. We'll see how it
yeah,
goes. I'm like, what? I
I
mean, he
know.
was adamant
In the
about
middle of all
being
this.
gone. Yeah, I was like, what is he doing? And Jim gets a little nervous when it comes to, I think, when he's thinking about his longevity. I think it comes from like where Jim came from. He wasn't a wealthy kid. He had to fight and scrap to get where he was. And then when
Yeah,
he did make a big chunk of money, that kid is still inside him. So he's always kind of protective of making sure that he's being able to pay the bill. Now, with the addition of Nikki in his life, that becomes even a little bit more heavy on his shoulders. So he's out touring to make more money. And I think, he's not taking Ubers, he's taking the subway. I mean, saving, $5 a day or something like that. It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, that's Jim, you don't need to do that. They always encourage Jim to spend money on things. He's like, nah, I don't need to be spending money on that. It's a contract year.
Yes.
So maybe it's a financial decision that's Jim's doing it. And it would be hard to leave something like this too.
Yeah, it would be. No matter what happened this week, there's that friendship and getting along with everybody. But yeah, I think Jim is changing his tune lately. I mean, we heard and we asked Sam about this and Jim on our show. We heard him for most of the year so far 10 times say he's done.
Yeah.
Especially when the video stuff comes up. And now it's like, yeah, we'll see what they come back with. I think he made a ton of money on I don't know for sure, but from what he said to on his show and other shows, I think he's made great money from Opie and Anthony. touring, stand up, making TV money, even if
Right.
it's for a small role, a recurring role on Lucky Louie, or movie money, even if it's for a small role. It's that all adds up. He's put all that together for many years. I think he's fine. I think he's smart,
Yeah.
even though someone may have maxed out a credit card
Somebody he lives
earlier
with?
this year. What?
Somebody he lives with, right? That's who
Maybe
would
some,
be
yeah.
perfect.
What does he refer?
Yeah,
Say
so
somebody I might know.
somebody I live with might have done this.
But
Somebody I know.
I think he's smart and careful, and
Yeah.
he is good.
He's good
And
with his
but I
money.
think he
He's
always
good here.
wants to keep
And I
adding.
think that's always in the back of him is like
Yeah.
this could all go away. It's that whole thing. All these guys said it could all go away, at any
Yes.
moment. So
So
let's get to the fun part of what this week had, right?
agreed, and that's why that's why this week was so amazing to me. Is you had this amazing fight that shed so much light on so many things, and the same episode, Jim is trying to make Norty and Rob's a thing, and everyone allows him to, and it's amazing. It's
It
hilarious. They
is
all went into it, like you said. So you have the fight. Jim rebrands the show Norty and Rob's, Norty at ROBBS.
two
And
B's,
then,
yeah.
yes. And then you have T Ref. Everybody gets a
Right,
sound effect for when they're
right.
thrown to. He has the T Rex, which I believe is from Jurassic Park. It's a great
Yeah, the
sound.
T-Rex sound effect from that. But yeah, you call him T-Ref, which is
T
just
Ref.
weird because it's not T-Taft and it's who knows, but go ahead.
Right, it's already grown on me. And the
Yes.
Music Man gets the gasms, a little riff from
Gasms
the
clip.
gasm song.
Yep.
Mikey Muscles, as you said, no sound effect.
No
Already
sound
been over
effect from
that.
Mikey Knuckles, yeah.
And Boss Man, Jimmy Mack for Jim McClure. And
It's
right
a
away,
song.
when he said the song, I knew the song. My dad used to listen to
Yeah.
all these all the time. Amazing song.
Jimmy Mack,
Jimmy Mack.
when are you coming back? Yeah, that's a
Amazing.
great tune. Yep.
So, I mean, it was an amazing segment when they're doing this morning zoo show
Yeah.
parody and they're going to each other, and you have the sound clips of
Troy,
the songs.
Troy's
Troy's
a horrible improv person, which is hilarious in its own right.
he panicked. You could it was he was enjoying the bit, I'm sure, but you could tell there was a panic for him
Yes.
to like be like, okay,
Back to you,
back to you. They
Norty.
always went back to Norty for some reason. Back to you, Norty.
And then
And then Nicole walks in the middle of all this.
no, and they give her honks, which makes perfect sense, and bring her in with the squeaky honk honk, and then also they want to do the boing boing boing, but there's only one boing, so like that was really funny. So yeah, they just expanded this whole universe, and you see the creativity and just how funny it is because they're making fun of those shows like October, like Jocktober, when they did that and all, Nicole played the role of the whole, and they're doing all the crazy morning zoo kind of stuff. So I thoroughly enjoyed this bit. I was laughing out loud. I love the sound effects. And, Travis was on the board or whatever he was doing, but he had to pull up each sound and kind of, he didn't have those little things ready to go, on a clips, like the soundboard, like they used to have with the iPad thing. So he was playing them off of YouTube and queuing them up, and it was just great. It was everything that you enjoy about, throwing out the rundown and having fun with something is what I was enjoying there for
Yeah,
sure.
no, it was outstanding. And I want to say outstanding for this next segment. I missed the mark on one thing, but it was amazing to hear about the wings experience at the Comedy Cellar, the Olive Tree restaurant upstairs. Everybody had a great time. They got the wings and they got some homemade kettle chips.
Yeah.
And Matt Biggins is in. Hot Dog cons his way in somehow. I had said that I hoped that Hot Dog was
Yeah,
not
me too.
invited and wouldn't be there. And I think what makes Hot Dog's appearance, first of all, he did the white power symbol in the photo as a joke, and it completely ruined the photo. It was so annoying. And as you said, no Montone. And yeah, I'm sure Mike's a busy guy. I'm sure he has stuff, but and look, they might have Sam was just setting the table talking about it on the air. We got we'll get to this, and then he went into the Matt Biggins thing where Matt sent this offensive text to his wife, told her it was Sam. Matt Biggins is a savage, and
He is
he's a bro,
savage.
and he
Yes.
sounded like he pounded some drinks. I love how
Yes.
Sam said it was like he won a charity auction because he like sat next to Jim. You can tell he's like
That
a
was
group
funny.
photo.
Like he wrote,
Great
yeah, like
line.
old radio stuff. Yep. So yeah, it
Well, no,
was
Montone. Well, and not even like, oh, he had something, but
no mention
they
of
didn't
it.
mention the
Yeah.
whole seven.
Yeah, so WingsGASM, as they started calling it, was fantastic. I'm glad they did it. I wish Hot Dog wasn't there. He doesn't deserve it. he is fodder. He is the joker. He is the gesture. He's the one that is there for their enjoyment. I get it. Don't put him in the photograph. He's easily cropped out. I think Matt Biggins even cropped out Travis as a joke. He should have cropped out the other side what Hot Dog was.
Yeah.
But it's weird that Montone wasn't even talked about going, or I just don't know. I don't think they do a lot of stuff with Mike outside the show. Like I said before, it feels like he's an outsider compared to
Yeah.
these guys that have been there. But it's nuts. And Hot Dog, I mean, Mike, just be thankful that you're there. He's ordering the same drink as Travis. He's just a poser in a way. He's talented. Sam likes using him. Sam mentioned that he uses him because he can yell at him about something he's doing production wise, and he doesn't take it, to heart, and he can and do that kind of stuff. Why do you have a guy around that you yell at? Let's make sure this guy's doing his work
Yeah.
proper. Not to yell at anybody.
Yeah.
Weird relationship. Don't know how he weaseled his way in there, but whatever.
Yeah. They should have traded him for Mike. And
Yes.
I think well, it was a commenter on Instagram that commented on a photo that said you guys got WingsGASM or something.
Yes,
They said
exactly.
WingsGASM. It was hilarious. I have one more point about Montone. Darn, I forgot. Maybe I'll remember
If it
later.
comes back, this will be like Jim and Sam, where our rundown doesn't matter. Just
Right,
bring it back up,
right,
and
right,
we'll see
right,
where it
right.
goes.
Oh no, I was gonna say that look, if they didn't invite him to this, that'd be a real shame. And then to
Yes.
talk about it on the air, it's a great segment on the air. And I mean that it was a show thing.
And I don't think that would be something they would do.
I hope not. I hope
I don't
not.
feel that
Just
these
think it
guys would
mentioned.
be that blatantly mean to somebody and not invite them to it.
Yeah,
Odd that they didn't talk about it. Odd that he didn't go, but I don't think they would blatantly not invite him.
I think and hope you're right. Yes. Let's get here. And then this was early in the week. This would have been one of our biggest things if it wasn't such an insanely productive week with just like two bits that happened.
Right.
But we'll call him homeless helper Jimmy. Walking New York City, sees one homeless guy that he believes is stealing another homeless guy's items. And the guy's yelling like, "Help me, help
Help
me."
me, call the police. Help
Jim's
me.
like,
Yeah.
what do I do? And Jim called 911 and he
Yeah.
reported a potential crime. I do like that he didn't videotape it. It is always like ridiculous when people videotape crimes happening and don't actually help or just post them for their own, likes. So it
Yeah.
was nice. Nice Jimmy did that. I thought it reminded me of an old Opie, not even really old. I think it's towards the end of Opie
No.
Anthony. But when
Yeah.
Jimmy was crime fighter Jimmy, he called 911 chasing what he believed was a stolen bus. I think it was stolen,
Yeah.
and chasing a bus. And we're here, we're here. And they're like the 911 operator like had no clue where Jimmy was. He was very specific, and someone found the 911 tape and brought it to Opie Anthony. One of the greatest bits ever.
Yeah, and in that 911 tape, you can hear the person say, "Well, I'm sure it's okay." Oh, Jim gets defensive. Okay, good, fine. You don't want to know about where the bus is going? I don't care where the bus is going. I'm just trying to help you people out. You know how Jim
Yeah,
kind of gets in
yeah,
that
it's
way.
great. It
So
was awesome.
it was very funny. But yeah, so yeah, when Jim called about 911, and it's interesting, and I think we all kind of fall into these things. I don't know if Jim didn't videotape because he felt like it was an invasion and not like appropriate, or if you just kind of get in the moment where you're trying to
Yeah,
help people and you're not videotaping. I'm a professional videographer, and any videos you see of my kids playing ball or doing a recital is the worst video ever because I'm shaking, I'm watching with my own eyes.
different equipment.
It's
Yeah,
Yeah, so if you're emotionally involved in something, I'm not paying attention. If I'm videotaping somebody else's kids, I'm not as involved as I would be with my own kids, so I'm going to get great video. I'm the worst videographer for my own self. So if Jimmy's emotionally involved, or at least even interested in what's going on and trying to help somebody, he's not going to videotape. So I get that. But then what led to that was the funny message you got from Verizon saying, since you dialed
oh
911, some of
God.
your user settings would not be functioning. And you have to go to the website and change it. I was like, okay, so penalize me because I'm trying to use this phone for its proper use
I do
as
something
a
like
phone.
that. Right. Insane, almost as insane as a dream Jim had about Nikki. Nikki in Jim's dream was involved with a certain early YouTube personality. Do you remember who that was, Chris?
I can't say his name properly, but it's the mastermind behind Chocolate Rain. Chocolate
He is
Rain.
the
He had
master.
that voice. Yeah. What's his name again?
I believe it's Tay Zonde.
Mm.
Um,
That's right.
hilarious image to picture that dream. That
Just
Tezonde was
Jim has
aiming at
such a
Jimmy.
weird, yeah. I mean, and that guy was picking up on, he was Nikki was cheating on Jim with this guy, so it's
Yeah.
just such a weird thing. And another thing that kind of happened during the week with Nikki and Jim that I was thought was really funny, and I
Oh,
can
also,
attest.
someone point out that hot
Yeah,
dog looks like Tezonde, and Jim had just seen hot dog, so maybe that's why.
maybe that's why it was in his brain
Go
for
ahead.
sure. But another thing Jim brought up is that he was rushed out of leaving the home for the studio, and his wife had a litany of things she wanted to discuss as he's trying to rush around there. She got up a little earlier and she was thinking about all these things and just wanted to Jim's opinion. Like, I gotta go. And he forgot his ID and he was just really traumatized by that. And he read out his text to her and her response. And it was so funny. He's like, Nick, you got to understand, I'm trying to rush. I got to do these things. I can't be hit with all
Trying
these
to get to
things. She's
work.
like,
Yeah.
he goes, sorry, sweetie. I hope you have a good day. And like everybody's like, oh, come on, Jim. Especially Troy. Troy's the best at doing that to Jim. And I've done that with my wife, and not even when I'm rushing to get out. And I think maybe this might have happened with you too. If I'm laser focused on editing or putting something together, and I need to be locked in on that. If she comes and asks me a question, I'm not as nice as I should be. I
Yeah.
imagine when you're writing your articles or doing some PR stuff, that could possibly happen to you too, right?
Oh, yeah, just anything. Like
Yeah,
I get, yeah, I get very focused. I mean, there's nothing worse than when you got to do something. It's an important task, and you're just getting a barrage of stuff. Like you will forget. And that's you also Jim probably knows himself. Like I will forget stuff if I'm focused on
exactly.
something and a bunch of other stuff's coming at me. Like
But
something's
that's
getting forgot. Yeah,
he forgot the ID, because he was thinking about, what Nikki was discussing and getting out of the house on time.
yeah. Something Troy didn't forget to do is to tag his buddies on, I believe, on Facebook when he was trying to win a Tesla in a sweepstakes. I love that. Troy's channeling some Voss there,
For
and I
sure.
also love Sam's breakdown of it. Like, look, I'm happy to try to win you a Tesla, man. I don't know if I need to be tagged.
Tagged
Like,
on
I don't want to be
anything.
tagged, but I guess I'm
Right.
happy to help you.
Yeah. And I think those guys would win Teslas too if Mr. Beast's birthday celebration gave Troy one. So
That's
it was
right.
very funny. Very funny.
And Mr. Beast owes Jimmy some, I believe, some Feastables after collecting his address. Another
Right.
quick hit there. Oh, I think it was Travis had the point that like if you win the Tesla, like you're gonna have to sell it to pay the taxes. Another great point. I mean,
For
it's not
sure.
cheap.
Not
And
cheap.
speaking of Jimmy, YouTube special. He has been very inquisitive of when the younger comics come on of how they do it. Is it the right move? Oh, you do get a lot of publicity from it.
Right.
I 100% can see Jim hiring somebody, throwing it on YouTube. Jim doesn't. He's dealt with networks before, and has a relationship with Netflix from being on that kind of a conglomeration of comics that one
Sure. For
show.
sure. Yep.
But
Yep. Yep.
he hasn't necessarily had a special on there, so I could definitely see Jim doing a YouTube special. How about
Yes. It's interesting though, but how do you make the money? Is it from the YouTube hits and how you get that? I don't know how you make money on that
Well,
stuff. Do you have an
from ours,
idea?
Chris,
Oh, that's right.
you get
The,
those. So come on
the
now, you get some.
$45 that we
Yeah,
have
you get a little
seen.
more. Sometimes you get that, and then no, he'll get a lot. I Jim he'll get a lot of press to talk about on the show. Other
Yeah.
comedians will help him share it, so he'll make some money on that. But then you also clubs will see that, and he'll get some better
Yeah.
bookings too.
Along those lines, I was amazed, and they brought this up too. Sam's, remember his iPhone uh, video that he had when he was talking to the lady about getting a new iPhone? This goes back years and
Yeah,
years
I
and years.
didn't. He kept talking about it, like, what is
Yeah.
this? Yeah,
Yeah. So he back in the Opening Anthony days, he went and interviewed people waiting in line for
right,
an
right.
iPhone. And it was a very funny bit and that kind of thing. And he put it up on his YouTube channel way before it was like the whole Not Sam and all that kind of stuff. It's gotten like over 6 million views, right?
Crazy.
And Jim said, what kind of money is that? And Sam came forth with that. He
Yeah,
goes, is it more than 10,000? And Sam said, oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and he
That's
didn't
a
monetize it at first. He let it get
no.
to a million first, and then
So you can imagine nowadays, Jimmy should do quite well, I guess, from the YouTube
he
money that he gets.
I bet you he'll want to look good. I think he'll make his money back on the
Production.
venue. You hope he makes his money back on venue, promotion, and videographer and editing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then yeah, I think it'll lead to some other opportunities too, even if it's just booking on the road, like bigger rooms, more rooms. But I think it'll help. All right, so moving along, there
Yeah.
was no guest. I mean, Nicole's not a guest, Nicole, so no
Nah.
guest this week. But one of the best weeks ever, the history of the show.
You know
And
me, I like it when there's no guess. I like the
and
guys.
then I last week I said I liked the guests. There's only three and they were good, but like
Yeah,
if there's none and all this stuff's happening, it's amazing. So let's get
absolutely.
to line of the week. I got one. I don't know if
All
you
right,
want to go first.
I have two.
Go for it.
Let's have you go first,
Okay.
just in case I steal
All right.
anything.
All right. Mine happened very early in the week before any of this other stuff happened. Jim was talking. They're trying to decide where Jim's going on vacation. He's like, maybe Cape Cod. We went last year to Cape Cod, but they were driving and they got stuck in a gay pride parade. And
Yes.
Sam goes, and somehow you ended up on top of one of the cars waving at everybody.
Very good.
Great line.
Very good. Yeah, just tying that all in. I absolutely love it. All right, I have two. This first one is not, I have an ultimate, and now I'll say last, but this one was kind of funny. They were talking about New York, and Jim asked the other guys, do you know what Tribeca means? You know, the area that they call Tribeca. And I can't remember. My son told me he lives there once. So, and Troy knew, but Travis didn't know. And he goes, Travis said, I know what Soho is, where that is, and what that means. And he goes, and I know Dumbo. And Jim jumped up, yeah, you know homo, and you know no ho, because your mom wasn't there. So he just kept on giving Travis all these names of things he knows. Very funny. But the ultimate one, absolutely ultimate, they had a caller call in and talking about the Shohei Ohtani. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah, the pitcher for the
expert.
Dodgers who got his translator got in trouble for all the gambling and all that kind of thing. And they talked about his, Ohtani's translator. And Sam clarified to Jim, he said, because he knows Jim's eyes got a little big and got excited when the man called in to talk about the translator. And Sam said, no, Jim, he's saying translator. And Sam goes, oh, okay. And Jim said, oh, I could, what you said, translator, that's on my schedule. It's going to have a translator. I butchered it, but it was that lightning fast, man.
It's easily the I think that beats mine. It's because of Jim's speed. It was phenomenal.
It didn't even take any thought.
No, he's how he is. How those seller guys are. And Jim is arguably the best one. Jim's phenomenal. I think our fans are phenomenal. I gotta say, we've been getting more positive comments, and you can tell they're people that like regularly watch our show. We're like, oh, for sure. Thank you, sir. So no, thank you. Keep the comments coming. We appreciate it. Appreciate you guys that love Jim and Sam and take time to watch our show and get our takes. I love putting my tinfoil hat on this week, Chris. There's some great stuff to break down, and thanks for all you do, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I absolutely, brother. And like I said, it's always a joy to be here with you on the town square. And I hope people have some thoughts on the Mike Montone effect, if you will. I just want to know if I'm way off base or not, or if they feel that same kind of thing. But it's interesting to me. But everything, I kid you not, everything that Jim and Sam do during the week is of interest to me, and that's why we all gather here in the town square.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not dog bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.